pharmaceutical drug that cures, cancer, like that would be a good time not to share it with someone and to get a patent. But for technology startups, that's not really the case. You don't really have those moments. You know, people think all the time, like Dan said, people think all the time that someone's going to come and steal my idea. They're going to build it. It just never happens. But the thing that does happen is that people don't get product market fit. They don't actually, you're sitting there thinking, okay, here's the problem, here's how I'm going to solve it, and no product ever survives, the first time, kind of the first meeting with a real user. So, the most important thing actually is to start getting feedback and start getting people, start getting people using your product, and they won't actually, they'll use it and then they'll stop using it. That's exactly what's going to happen in the beginning, and then, but as you get their feedback and as you make it better, you can actually, wind your way and hopefully, hit the point where you're actually, solving their needs and doing that well. And the only way to do that is to start getting, people using your product.
How long did it take to get a group where you could get feedback from? And then as like a second part of that, how long did it take to become profitable?
Yeah. So. Yeah. The first question is how long did it take to find a group to start using your product, and how long did it take to become profitable? On the first question, we just started just sending it out to everyone we knew. I think we posted on some forums saying like, "Hey guys, try this out," and
we were shut down for spamming.
And just kind of hustle, just send it around, and if it's something that works really well, that actually that solves a huge need for people, then it just kind of tends to spread on its own. This kind of word of mouth effect. I think any truly great product has a decent word of mouth effect. And then there's other components that at some point, if it is new and kind of does solve an important need, then the press are going to want to write about it, and that's a good way. So there's all kinds of ways to do that, but I think the most important is even just getting 50 or 100 people trying out what you built. And the thing is, exactly what's going to happen on the first version is that people are going to try it out and they're going to stop using it, and you have to go back to them and say, why didn't it work right? What was wrong? And then slowly, you could inch your way towards actually having a better product.
And one other thing that I think I could add here is that in that initial group of users, you're going to have a lot of people that just drive by, check it out, leave. But there are going to be a passionate set of few people that do use your product, and hone in on what's important to them, why they use your product. Look at their use case, and maybe think about the feature set that's going to make it more attractive to them. And feel free to even reach out to them if it's like a web-based service. Real users actually love to be contacted. Even though you've never met them in person, reaching out and just getting on the phone with them is one of the best methods of understanding your product in the eyes of their eyes.
And then to answer the second part of your question, how take us to get profitable. If you consider, we first started working on the product, almost in project form in 2006. The company was incorporated. We started working on it full time January 2007. And then we became profitable in January 2009. So about 2 years. But the thing about profitability, I mean, there's a lot of different schools of thought on how early you should start charging for your product. And there's a lot of good arguments on how you want to approach things, but personally, I don't place a lot of importance on profitability early on. The most important thing is product market fit, is actually having a great solution that works for a lot of people, and I think that's a problem that's very, very difficult to solve, and that's the one you should be focused on. Most companies don't get product market fit and don't scale past that stage. The number of companies that had product market fit and had a lot of users using them and didn't figure out how to make money is like near zero, right? It approaches zero. So it's good to make sure that you understand how your business model is going to work and have ideas, and don't build something fundamentally unprofitable or on a bad business model. Think about it. It's just not your top problem. So I don't think it's the one that you should be focusing on first.
Yeah, I just want to counter that slightly in the sense that you need to find product market fit and show growth for investors to really get excited. So when you have that initial seed funding, it's very important to be lean and do not spend it excessively, because if you can achieve product market fit, that's when your company is actually valuable, and that's when you won't have as much of a problem raising money. So in our case, and we speak from our experience, so everybody's different, and there's many companies that probably just spent like rampant and did very well, maybe like Groupon or something. But actually, in their early days, they pivoted a bunch of times until they found product market fit. But anyway, I wanted to point out that our first year and a half, I believe, we didn't hire anybody, and we all lived in that same apartment for that whole time. It wasn't until we had product market fit that we were really able to scale up.
One of us with a microphone will have to restate the question just as, since this is being streamed and recorded. Question, right over there.
What's your hiring process like, and has it evolved since the inception of the company?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The question is, what is our hiring process like, and has it evolved? It has evolved a little bit, but really it stayed pretty much the same. And so our hiring process for engineers, which makes up the majority of our company, is basically you would go through just an introductory call with probably Deva, one of our recruiters. Just kind of talk, get your story, make sure that we kind of get to know you a little bit, probably just a quick 30-minute call. The next step would be either an in-person or a phone interview, a technical interview, so that would probably be probably about an hour, and go through a bunch of technical questions. And either our VP engineering, Darian, or I would do that interview. And then if we really like you at that point, the last step, and it's a bit unusual, but we do a trial week, which is we get you in the office, and we pay you for your time, so it's not like an unpaid week, but you work on a project for a week, and we get a week to work together. And I think it's important for a lot of reasons. One, because I like to tell people at that stage, we're looking to hire people who have the intention of sticking around for 3 or 4 years. Obviously things can change, but we want people who are on not just for the short term, but a little bit more of the long term. And if you're going to decide where you want to work for 3 or 4 years, that's a really big decision. So maybe we just kind of sweet talked you in the interview and told you it was going to be great, and you get it and it's not, right? So I think it's important for you to see where you're going to work and to get a chance to work with the team for a week and to make sure you like it. And it's important for us to get a chance to work with you. I think our success rate through the trial week is probably about 60 or 70%. So it's a really good success rate, but there's still about 30, 40% of people that we would have had to let go if we hadn't done the trial week. So it's a really good way to just get a chance to work together and make sure that both of us are a little more confident in the decision.
And it's as much about sort of personality fit as it is about sort of a technical fit as well. And that's the one thing that, again, that we really put an importance on and stress, which is that culture fit, so that we can try to keep that culture that we have, that everyone is used to and enjoys, and keep that as long as we possibly can.
Yeah, I think the top reason that people don't get through the trial week is either it's a personality problem, like they're assholes, or it's they're just kind of lazy. Actually, a lot of people come in and they're technically really good, but they're not motivated. They're not like trying really hard to get a lot done in that week. And so it's almost surprisingly easy to pass through if you're just showing that you're motivated and that you're trying to work hard and you're not an asshole.
When you started, was the majority of your feedback positive or negative, and how did you handle that?
Yeah, sure. I did answer all the customer support emails, so those are generally like. Oh, sorry. The question is is the feedback from the customers usually positive or negative?
When we started. Yeah.
When we started out. So actually, people are pretty positive. If they bother to actually send you feedback, they care. The negative people just leave. So of the people that write in, they actually want a solution to what they're asking. Some people do write in just praise, which is awesome, but that's the minority. Most people are, there's a bug, or they want to do this, and we don't support that. So really, their question is, how can you help me improve my site? Or there's a problem with this. So, so it's kind of a mix, but generally people aren't very negative. Like, it's not like someone would write, I hate your product, like I'm going to leave. Like that doesn't really happen.
Unless we ban their site, that happens.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people write in and they wonder why we banned their site. It was clearly against terms of service, and they get angry with us, and it's really.
I think, you know, one thing that's a good sign is if you get people passionate about your product one way or the other, that's a good sign. So even if you do attract a lot of people that are really angry about what you're building, that's still a better sign than a lot of people who just don't care. Because if you put something out there and people just don't care, that's the worst sign. If you put something out there and people get fired up and they write you, whether good or bad, that's a really good sign because it's showing that you're sort of you know, making something that people care about.
One of the questions that frequently comes up in my entrepreneurship class is how you make money from a good idea. And I wanted to ask you if you could explain or describe the evolution of your business model, how it is you make money, and how that evolved. Was that an easy or hard set of decisions to make?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we make money, and how easy or hard is it to find your business model? I think you know, for us, it was pretty easy. In the early days, I think we had a list of like 10 ways that we thought we could make money, you know, some of them, like our top ones, turned out totally not to be the ways that we make money. I think one of our top ones was we were going to charge people for like top placement of our elements. So when you first went into Weebly and you saw all these things you could drag on your page, you know, some of the top ones would be sort of sponsored, if you will, and then that turned out not to be a thing at all. But you know, the way we make money is just very, very honest. It's just like, if you like our product and you want to use the pro features, you just pay us money. And it's like, it's very, very simple. I'm not personally a big fan of advertising supported business models because it's just a lot trickier to manage sort of you know, all the stakeholders and what everybody's interests are. But I think making money, if you have product market fit, if you're building something, if you've built something that is really useful to people, that solves a big need they have, making money is really, really easy. It's just ask them to pay, and they will, if you've actually solved a big problem that they have.
I want to follow up with one more question that's sort of financially related. I'm really curious what kinds of things you said to win your first kind of investors. Your first angel investment, what kinds of things did you say to get them excited and receive?
Yeah, so the question is, what kind of things do we say to get our, you know, first investors excited and want to invest in the company? You know, one thing we did that was kind of neat is we, you know, whenever we'd pitch an investor, we would rebuild their site in front of them in like 5 minutes, so we'd take their site and we'd download the images, we'd have it ready to go, and then when we'd take the meeting, we would just, you know, just kind of rebuild the whole thing in front of them in a couple minutes. That was really interesting because a lot of those guys were looking at the site that we just built in 5 minutes and were thinking to themselves, like, I spent $100,000 to have that site built. And you just rebuild it in a couple minutes. So I think that was sort of, you know, it is kind of important to demonstrate the need, and you know, investors, you know, I mean, same thing with press, and you know, investors and press are human. If they can understand the need because it applies to them, then they're going to get what you're trying to do. So, but you know, basically, you just want to convince them that it's a problem that a lot of people have, and you want to show them that you have the solution to that problem. And I think that's fundamentally, you know, what investors are looking for.
Yeah, one thing to add is that it's definitely helpful to get an introduction to an investor through someone that you know that knows the investor. The way we were introduced to the people that ended up funding our angel round was Matt Brzezina, who's going to be here later today, I believe, and speaking later. He was like about a year ahead of us in terms of moving out to San Francisco and working at with Y Combinator. And so he knew us, that we were coming out from Penn State, and he just wanted to help us out. So he reached out, told us about this apartment complex that he stayed in, and we became friends with him. And, you know, he helped us because he went through funding, you know, kind of 6 months ahead of us, right? So we kind of saw the struggles that he went through. So that was helpful. So use your network in order to get an introduction to that investor, because instantly you have a leg up over just a random email that you send them. And investors, like Dave pointed out, are human, right? So if they feel there's competition, if they feel that there's like there's a hot deal, they will like speed up their process. They will make kind of irrational decisions to fund your company. So anything you can do to get multiple investors interested is very helpful.
It's worth noting that, you know, when we raised our initial seed round of investment, the product wasn't making any money, right? We weren't charging for anything, so it was still very much about the team and about just sort of the vision, selling that vision to investors and really, having them buy into that.
And investors don't necessarily buy your vision 100%. They a lot of times the entrepreneurs have better insight into their market and the vision for that than they do. Like, for instance, one of potential investors asked if, like, why wouldn't a MySpace page replace a website? Right. So you gotta counteract that with true reasons and really sell them on the vision so they see what you see.
When you were asking for investment money, what were you telling them? I don't know if this is the same as what you actually used it for, but what were you using the money for, and why did you need to go to investors? You already have the
Yeah. So the question is, why did we need to raise money? What did we tell potential investors we were going to use the money for? So to answer the why did we need the money, it's extremely rare. I mean, I think it's very rare to build a business where you can scale the business quickly just by reinvesting the money that you make. So essentially the idea behind raising money is that you raise a certain amount of money, you can scale the business, you could grow it much more quickly than you otherwise could. So, and that's really important because, at the end of the day, we all have a limited amount of time and we're looking to maximize, what we can do with our time. As well as the fact that the opportunity is not going to be around forever. So, you want to capitalize on an opportunity that you have today, and you want to try to grow, as big as possible, as quickly as possible, with some limits. So the idea is that you can raise money from investors. That helps you scale the business up quickly and capitalize on the opportunity that you see today. In terms of what we told them money to be used for, I mean, it's things like everything from just running operations, servers. We wanted to hire people and all those things. As well as we wanted to raise money just to keep the business alive. At that point we were working on it full time and we had rent to pay. So I think just continuing to run the business and to scale the business up.
We have a question from the startup team on the front row.
Was there a time in the development of the company when the three of you were at odds on a major change in direction, and how did you get through it?
Was there a time when the three of you were at odds over a major decision, and how did you get through it?
Well, I know. So yeah. The question is, was there a time where the three of us have been at odds about a major decision? How do we get through it? No particular decision is, situation is coming to mind, but I'm absolutely positive that the answer is yes. It happened. But what's nice about having three founders is that we've always had essentially a tie break. So there's never been a situation where I'm going to say I'm the CEO and this is what we're doing, right? Some people might. But with us, I think there's always been a really good work chemistry where we're able to just sit down and just like argue it out and just say, reasons for, reasons against. And then at the end of the day, if I'm for something and both of them don't think it's a good idea, then it's probably not a good idea. And so that's, I think, a nice dynamic of having three founders. One idea that does come to mind that was really, really important early on was I was absolutely convinced that we just wanted to build the tool and build a service, and that we didn't want to host people's websites for them. So in other words, what it would look like is you'd go to Weebly and you'd start building your website, and then when you click publish, it would ask for your FTP credentials so it could upload your site to a web host. And I was just completely convinced that this is the only way to go. And Dan thought that we just needed to help people out. People didn't want to go through the complication of finding a web host and figuring out how to set up hosting and all that. And so initially I couldn't be convinced, but he worked on me for about 4 to 6 months and finally convinced me, and it was the best decision ever because he was absolutely right. People don't want to figure out hosting. They don't want to deal with these FTP credentials, and that's something that we're able to just take care of for people and make that whole process transparent. I mean, it's amazing to think that that when you build your site on Weebly, the hosting is just free. It comes with it. It scales more or less infinitely for you automatically. You don't have to deal with crashes. You don't have to deal with, we've had sites on the front page of CNN.com that that we didn't even notice because we just serve so much traffic. So I mean, it's kind of amazing how we're just able to abstract that whole thing away for you, that's one perfect example of something that that originally we disagreed about, but we just talked it through and came to the right decision.
Yeah, the nice thing is that we're all very rational, non-confrontational people. And so we really can have a conversation and get to the solution that makes the most sense for the business and for the user. We're pretty passionate about our arguments sometimes, and people in the company have seen that and they're like, "Is this normal?" Like, this is like, it might be heated, but we're just arguing for our point of view because we think it's best for the user. So that's important. And related to that is, and we kind of got lucky in a sense, but who you have as your co-founders is really critical because so many companies fail due to founder disagreements. I don't know the percentage, but it's got to be above 25, maybe 40% of companies fail because the company doesn't have focus and the founders disagree. And that just makes for bad culture in your company. And so choosing that right partner for your company is kind of like, it's as critical as like, I relate it to literally like choosing your wife for a marriage. Like, you're going to spend all day, every day for like years, not like together. So it's very important that you get along.
Yeah, people have definitely compared our arguments to old married couples. So.
We have a question in the back.
So WordPress and one-on-one are statistically better than your service. How can you overcome these competitors without saying we'll just make our features better?
Right. So the question is that I think what you're saying is that WordPress and one-on-one have more users than we do at this point, and that's correct. WordPress runs about I think about 20% of the sites on the internet as a platform, and we run about 2%. So how can we basically beat competitors without just saying we're going to make our features better? And I think the answer to that question is that we think that we're building something new and different than what's out there. What I really like to compare it to actually is smartphones before the iPhone. So I'm not sure. This was a long time ago, but back when I was at Penn State, the iPhone didn't exist, and I was a heavy user of the Palm Trio. And if you were to do a feature checklist comparison of all the features that the Palm Trio had versus the iPhone, it would look really similar because if you think about it, it was actually pretty cool for its time. It had push email, it had like IM, it had downloadable apps over the air, it had a full web browser, it had all these things. But what it didn't have is it didn't have a truly exceptional experience. The user experience was just clunky and it just didn't work very well. And because of that, it just never went mainstream. Then the iPhone came out, and it was such a gorgeous experience. I mean, it was Apple likes to say, delightful. For us, we think we're doing a very similar thing, which is, we know our product today is still too difficult to use. There are still a lot of areas for improvement and a lot of directions we want to go. To date, our product has grown entirely via word of mouth. That's fairly unusual and exceptional. What we found is, the other analogy I like to compare it to is just think of a dam and imagine you start sort of lowering the line of the dam and water starts rushing over, and the more you lower it, the more the water just starts pouring over. And that's how I like to think of continuing to make our product better and easier to use. Is it just gets accessible to more people, and we're in the process of going mainstream. We honestly think that it's a product that's different than what's out there. WordPress was built as a blogging platform, and I think it wasn't a general purpose CMS, if you want to call it that. But what's interesting is they've sort of tried to pivot in the direction that we're in. So I think, essentially we want to continue to build out the vision. It's not finished yet. There's a lot of areas for improvement. And we essentially think by building a much better product that we can win that market. That being said, it obviously for us, product is first and most important. But there's also marketing and other things that come into play that we're really focused on. So I think there's multiple answers to that question. But most important to us is just building a truly exceptional product.
Go back to the beginning. Because it was a class project, did you guys know each other before the class? Have you guys worked together on teams before, and did you kind of have that vision, or did you guys get kind of thrown into the fire?
Yeah, so the question was, did we know, because it was a class project, did we know each other before the class? Yes. We actually weren't in the class together. I was the only one that was in 440W. I met Dan probably the first couple weeks of freshman year. I was in the 4th floor of Simmons Hall. It was Jersey Shore back then. I don't know if it's still the same. And Dan was in the 1st floor of Simmons Hall. And eventually realized that the 4th floor was much cooler and moved up to the 4th floor.
That's true.
And so I met Dan like right at the beginning of college, and then also on the 4th floor of Simmons Hall is one of my best friends, Chris Morvant, who Fanini knew from high school. So I ended up meeting him probably sophomore year. Just kind of hanging around, mutual friends. So we did know each other before starting the company, and I think, for us that's been really important is to have a friendship first and working relationship second.
We have a question in the very back row.
How do you address security concerns as you continue to get larger and larger?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few different. I'm sorry. Yeah. So the question is, how do you address security concerns as you get larger and larger? So I mean, there are a few pieces to that. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to process and putting processes in place that you follow to ensure that you have best practices, right, for security. You have you sort of keep an eye on things, and you know exactly what type of code is being introduced. You have code reviews. I mean, there's all sorts. I mean, there's the software side, there's the hardware side, there's the physical side. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to process and having audits and really just being aware of it, right?
I mean, security is something that we've always been, it's been really, really important to us from day one. The previous company I started in high school was an email security company, so it was definitely top of mind for me. And from the very beginning, we've implemented some of the just some of the critical, sometimes easy to overlook, but proper password hashing and VPN access to any internal network, and and the list really goes on. But it's always been sort of top importance to us from the very beginning.
Just before the end, I want to publicly thank Dave for his scholarship. Okay, I'll have to come down. We're ending it.
Great question. How do you attract top talent in the Bay Area when it's very difficult to do so? Actually, we tend to hire outside of the Bay Area and move people in. So there's a lot of different areas we move people from Phoenix, we move people from Atlanta, we move people from Alabama, just
Penn State.
All kind of all across the country, and I think we've hired people from the Bay Area too. But you're absolutely right. There's a huge war for talent in the Bay Area. And sometimes we've had a lot of success in finding people that are outside the Bay Area and kind of want to move up into the major leagues.
So obviously Weebly is very important to you guys, but do you guys have like a vision beyond that? Like what do you guys want to do next, or is this like something that you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Weebly is important to us now. Do we have a vision for what we want to do next, or do we want to work on Weebly for the rest of our lives? I don't necessarily know that I will be working on Weebly for the rest of my life, but I do know that I'm not thinking of what's next. It is something that I'd like to be working on at least for the next 10 to 15 years. The vision for what we want to do is we want to bring, what we're doing for people is really incredible. And they're telling us that, and it's really cool actually to read, sometimes, what people write in. A lot of people using Weebly are entrepreneurs. They want to start something, and they have this idea of something they want to build, and they kind of want to get it out there into the world, and change the world in their own small way. We're enabling them to do that. So it's something that I think all of us are very, very passionate about. And like I said earlier, we're not finished. It's still too difficult to use. There's still a lot of areas that we want to improve. So we want to literally bring this to everyone. Whether it's an entrepreneur, kind of starting a business, which is the majority, or a teacher, or a student, or a nonprofit, or an artist. I mean, the list goes on, and we really think that everyone has a need for this. It's just a matter of today it's still too difficult and not as powerful as it needs to be.
You pick.